Welcome, everyone, to the Enlightened Masculinity podcast, where there are many things that are involved in enlightened masculinity, but we're really here to dissect this word phrase, get deeper into the deeper meaning of what does it mean to be a modern, enlightened, masculine, mystical man, and also just talk about some interesting, there's commonalities in the human story wherever you go in the world. So whatever we say, whatever we talk about, it's probably going to relate to something you got going on. So we appreciate your support, appreciate your comments and sharing of our podcast. You can always check the links below for where to find free private content and message me and my co-host. So I'm joined today, as every Saturday and Sunday, by my co-host Kashanti Katakam, a bioresearch analyst and yoga teacher from Montclair, New Jersey. I'm joining you from Gainesville, Florida right now. And I'll quickly just hand it over to him. He makes some immaculate show notes, and he's gonna set the pace for us and show us where we're going with this today. So Akash, welcome. Glad to see you, brother.
Thank you, brother. I myself am joined by Yogi Chris, PhD, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga and yoga teacher traveler extraordinaire. He travels internationally and teaches and has the lifestyle of a true yogi, in my opinion. So very aligned with him, and every conversation that I have with him, I find myself aligned by the end of it. So why wouldn't I want hanging out here? Couple things we wanted to talk about with you guys today. One, as Yogi Chris noted, we do have a private Facebook group. So if you guys have any questions in regards to health, wealth, relationships, or spirituality, find us. We talk about these things all the time and have a couple techniques that you guys might be interested in. Nonetheless, I want to start talking today, Yogi Chris, about how to find your flow. Last night I went out with a new friend. And I was showing him some pickup that I've studied under the incredible Vince Kelvin and Arashti Bizarre. Before we even went out, I was like, all right, meet me here, pick me up at this particular time, bring swimming trunks. And I didn't tell him or give him any context as to like what was going to happen, and a gym bag. And so being super open-minded to listen to these things, but that was an important lesson in and of itself for pickup. We went to the hot tub. We did a lot of stretching. We went to the steam room, sauna, cold shower. By the end of it, we end up feeling absolutely incredible. And then we start going out. And it's that whole routine for me was a way to find my flow. So what I wanted to talk about with you today, Yogi Chris, was how do you find your flow in general? And what does it even mean what does it mean for someone to find their flow?
Super interesting question. I love it. And, flow is a movement. And movement of what? Find what flow? My movement. It's easy to draw analogies. Anybody that's like ever run or bicycle or some kind of repetitive task, washing dishes, sweeping the floor, like you fall into a rhythm. There's like a rhythm of the activity that sometimes it feels like you find the rhythm, but really it's almost like the rhythm finds you. And there's effortless effort. What does that mean? Because I really dislike this phrase. I made a whole YouTube video about how much I fucking hate that phrase. But effortless effort, it makes sense in this context because it's like there's no mental effort per se. It's frictionless. And how do I find my flow? My flow, frictionless what? It's like the moving forward, the behaving and acting towards my goals, my wants, my desires. And so they think a lot of people are out of the flow because they're acting in ways that are contrary to their goals, what they actually want to do. So they have some wants and needs that are opposite of where they want to go. So they're out of the flow. So in the flow, it's a flow of metabolism, a flow of thought, especially a big thing. And here's one of the biggest ways that I get into the flow. The most powerful manifesting force on earth that I have assessed. And this was my PhD. I have a doctorate in assessing energy flows. It's actually, my doctorate was on earth cycles of energy, all the way working down to nuclear energy and I don't want to bore you guys with the details. And working all the way up through solar energy, which is just massively abundant all over the surface of the earth, you know, all sorts of energy flows. The most powerful energy flow on earth is the stream of reverberated air that exits a human mouth with arbitrary sound code that represents certain meanings. What do I mean by this? Talking manifests the universe around us. Your communication brings people closer, pushes them away, elevates your position in life, or depletes your position in life. You know, creates a friend, creates an enemy. And getting into the flow, all other flows are junior to that flow that I see right now. And so one of the fastest, bestest, clearest, sharpest, most accurate ways to get into my flow is to start talking about how I want the flow to be. When I talk about how I want the flow to be, I become it. And so this is my magic. And it's the magic of IMC. It's the magic of my teacher, Arash Bazar. This is our magic. And yeah, I could go a lot more into that. My girlfriend had some realizations because we drove 2.5 hours yesterday to teach somewhere. And on the way we were talking. No, sorry. It was after the event. It was one of the private lessons I was late for. I was so embarrassed. And so I was doing the private lesson in the car, and my girlfriend was there, and she heard me, but I had like the Bluetooth, so she didn't hear the other guy. And at some point, I referred to this as this is our magic, because the guy is in my silent flute training program, and then so I'm talking to him as if it's my tribe. It's like, this is our magic. This is how we create what we want, or destroy what we don't want, or however, you know. So anyway, without getting too much into it, like, that's the flow for me. You know, the flow, it's really big. There's so many things that could be the flow, and everybody's got a different flow. And yeah, what do you think about that? I know that you like the idea of talking and creating through your words. How would applying what I just said alter or change or replace or update or not be included in how you got into the flow?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think part of it in and of itself is finding out within the location that you're in, or the, how would you say this? Not the external voices, not the internal ones, I guess, and using them to fuel the objective that you have. So anytime we arrive somewhere, we always have some type of intention. I know there's been times where it's like, oh, I don't really know what my intention is in and of itself. So it's oftentimes, I think, important to find that in and of itself, but there is some intention as to why you show up anywhere. Getting in touch with that is really, really critical and important. But once you do find this, you use the conversation that you're hearing from external voices to guide you to your intention, and to satisfy or succeed in that. You could hear a voice. So what I was hearing from you was your observation on how to get into flow itself, and your thoughts on it. And it's like, how can I use these words and interplay them and layer them on top of each other to guide the conversation of flow itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, when you say use these words, you mean use my words or use the words of whoever is talking around you?
Well, in this particular scenario, yours, but in general, it could be whomever's talking around you. So you take an observation and
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, here's an idea. So if I'm going, you said you go to the hot tub, and then you said you went to the sauna, and then you went to the, what is it, cold shower? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Was it anything else?
There was a steam room as well.
Oh, a steam room and some stretching.
And stretching, yes.
So I would start with now I'm stretching. And before stretching, on the way to stretching, I'd talk about what kind of stretches we're going to do, what the stretching is going to be like, and what effect I want to create. And then I would go, whatever the next order is, you go to the sauna, and it's like, okay, now in the sauna, it's for this purpose, and we're going to do this. And while you're in the sauna, you're talking about what the sauna is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go into the cold water, you prepare yourself. Here we go. And you go into the cold. And then you start talking about how great the cold is and how much you love it. And what experience is it creating in you? And so you pace your own reality as you go through it. And you start warming up your voice and start connecting your experience to your voice, voicing your experience. And because the flow, there is no flow more powerful than your voice if it's proper communication. Let's not say your voice, because somebody could just be nonsense. So it's your communication. And your voice is your communication. You know, yeah, your body language and tone is part of your voice and facial expression and whatever else there is. But you know, if you're not looking at somebody, somebody calls your name, it's going to be their voice. And their voice, you may turn and look or you may not, depending on their voice. And so start to connect what's happening inside with my voice outside. And the strength of this connection, because the flow, it's like riding a horse or riding a bull or something. You never know where the flow is going to take you. And you don't want to get tossed off the flow. And so you want to be really warmed up and you want to be really fastened in and connected to the bull. You know, so you want to be really connected to your voice. You don't want your experience to run away and you not have a voice for it anymore. That's where people like shut down, or that's where, like, you know, what Vince Kelvin would say, how does he call it? File not found. They'll do like pattern interrupts with, you know, which is amazing. It's an amazing philosophy, basically, that everybody's already hypnotized. They're hypnotizing themselves, just going through repetitive day tasks, like they're trancing themselves. You don't realize it until you start studying what trancing is. And when you can put people in trances and you start to notice your own trances, and then you notice when you come out of trance, you're like, shit, like most of the day is a trance. Like, and everybody else, they're just so tranced that they don't even know they're fish in water. They don't even know that they're in the water. They're in the trance. And so Vince has these ways of communicating that just break patterns. And so when they respond with the file not found, that's when they have lost the flow, whatever flow they were in, you know, and their voice is no longer connected. It's not fastened into their experience. So I think when it comes to, so everybody's already in a flow, but if you want to get in, like, what did you call it? I wrote it down. Your groove. To get into your groove. Very interesting, very yogic related kind of concept too, because this goes into like the idea of samskaras, and sometimes it's described as like mental grooves, you know, like grains on wood, that you have these patterns of like behavior. Step B comes after A, step C comes after B, and so on. That if you start down the pattern, you're just going to flow down the groove. And so you could get into the groove by not trying to do anything, and you'll naturally be in your groove. But if you want to improve your groove, if you want to change your groove, improve groove, that's a great word for it. If you want to start, you know, steering the groove or altering the groove or whatever, talking about your experience and start putting a voice to your experience. So it becomes really unconscious. You just put voice to your experience, and then start it, because your experience is hard to, it's magic. That's like left-hand path magic. You go in there and like just change your experience without words. Just go in and reshape your energy. And so, but voice, if represents your inner experience, then you can just lasso your attention onto your voice and change your voice and change your syntax and change your words, and you can alter your own inner experience. So this is like talking yourself into the flow.
Interesting. So, Yogi Chris, this brings me to a question that I was contemplating yesterday as well. One of the things, just lastly before on this topic of flow, is I found that it's important to find some ritual that you perform for yourself. So it could be something internal as to, okay, well, I shift my body, I shift my shoulders to the right, I shift my shoulders to the left, and then I bring my chin up, and like that's like my like way.
That's a great move.
Getting I just wanted to see you do it right there. Actually, that was the real intention of that. No, but it's finding some way for yourself within your physical body to, okay, I do these particular actions, and this is what will set me on a course that I know, no matter what, I have an awesome time. For me, that's what I kind of outlined with you. It's like, all right, my body was feeling kind of like, I don't know how I feel right now. I'm going to do something that makes me feel amazing. And it could be even a yoga practice. And that's one of the incredible things is like, find something that you physically do with your body because it'll change your internal body as well, and that'll change your mind state. Bam, puts you on a path of incredible times. Do you think, as this is the Enlightened Masculinity podcast, do you think it's a man's job to create a flow or to fall into one? Like, shall he be the cause or the effect of a flow?
I mean, the immediate inclination is to create, but I think I want to understand, what do you mean by the flow? Like to create a flow or fall into a flow? What's flow mean?
In this context, I guess I'm defining it as, so there's an internal one, which is like what's going on within your body, and then there's an external one as to what is your environment showing you. I guess in this scenario, we could talk about both. Must you create, as a man, must you create your own internal flow, and must you dictate the external one?
Well, a woman will leave you every time if your internal flow is the effect of the outside environment.
Mm.
You know, how can she feel safe and protected if she can't, if you don't have control of your inner flow? If you know, if you don't have control of your inner flow, you could have massive control of your external environment and not, you know, like almost like an alcoholic that if they're around alcohol, they would drink. So they just never put themselves around alcohol. But really, they've just cut their universe. And so there's places they can't go, and which is self-imposed. So if they can't control their inner, and so they would control, because if you don't control your inner flow, the outer flow, the outer environment will control your inner environment. And so it's important to see that. It's important to see that the universe, what the universe is showing you is, wow, my Instagram camera. What the universe is showing you is completely your opinion. 100%. 100%. Like, you could say, well, if I drop this pen, it's going to fall. That's clearly what the universe is showing me. Yeah, but you're wrong. What if I said, when I drop this pen, the planet falls to the pen? Just change the story. What if when I drop this pen, they're in love and they come together? What the universe shows is totally up to you. And there's when you so what I just said is a story that's inside my body, you know, because if I don't say it out loud that, oh, the planet just fell to the pen, internally, if I was thinking that, that's my internal story, and so that becomes my experience of what just happened. And so that's me taking control of the inner flow, because that's talking on the inside. So to create the flow, on a super, like, just a big scale, I create no flows. I just discover flows that were already there. You know, all the flows are already created, right? That's like on a big scale, but so great. How is that helpful? Well, it's helpful for me in a way that it takes a little bit of pressure off. Like, I'm not really trying to reinvent things here. I'm just looking for what's already there. Because I already know, like Arash Dibazar said the other day, I think he said it in a No Fucks podcast. I try not to share too many things that Arash says in paid programs, but he says, a lot of people that, if you're in, like, Akash, you're in the mentorship, like, you'll look at the No Fucks podcast and be like, wow, this is like mentorship level advice. Like, some of this is really, really good. Like, I've taken 600 notes. I number them. It's amazing. And I've missed like half of them. But I have begun to realize, as I do so many of these podcasts, the distinction between my paid content, my YouTube content, my podcast content, and then some people taking private lessons, so it's even deeper on the Silent Flute content, that if you don't have the context for what's being said, it just isn't as potent. It isn't as valuable. Like, there is just gold that's shared, but there's actually a foundation that's needed. And, that foundation can be accessed when somebody pays money. When you pay money, that is so closely linked to your survival that as soon as you give that exchange, your mind opens up and says, okay, I'm giving, now give me, I'm open. I want what you have because I've given my life here. This is my ability to move around the planet. It's my freedom tickets. So he says this, Arash says this in the No Fucks podcast, which changed my universe, but it was a free podcast. He says, humans, it's obvious, it's been demonstrated that most light we don't see. We only see that little narrow, rainbow colors. And so he says this. This is the sentence that set me free a little bit. It's amazing that a sentence can do this. He says, we are mostly blind to the universe. Get it? It should be, if it doesn't free you, then watch more of our content. That should free you. So you're mostly blind to what's happening.
Yeah, Yogi Chris, the most, I guess, immediate thing that comes to me is that, it's funny, it's like, there's levels to this shit, like, you need to have these, like, base understandings, and it's in free content itself that I found that, like, I can get so much more richness out of it if you, like you said, exactly, you have the context to these things. It's the law of exchange, exactly what you're talking about. In order for me to receive, I must first give. And I can't understand at higher levels and get higher level knowledge until I give. And it needs to be from a place of, like, when you give something that's, like, puts you in a place that's like, oh crap, like, it's I either do or die, or like you mentioned, like, you're putting so much, like, money or whatnot at stake, you're forced to receive. Like, there's just no way that you miss out on valuable content. So it's absolutely incredible in that sense. I mean, I've been doing Arash's mentorship program, paying $1,000 a month to date. And to me, it's incredible. To show myself that I have this spending power and I have the ability to spend that much money and be like, you know what? I'm going to get something out of it. Like, I've become super, super abundant and wealthy as a result of just being able to spend that money, which has been incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And it puts me on a trajectory of, when I have to spend more money, it's not going to be an issue. It's like, oh, $1,000. Yeah, here you go. Like, no big deal. You know what I mean? People who are in, like, true places of abundance don't worry about things like that. And I found that to be absolutely important, incredible, and liberating in and of itself. Like, oh yeah, money, not a big deal. Like, it's whatever. It's just something that means a lot in this world. But in order for me to get what I want, I give this and I get whatever I want, for the experience that I'm looking for. So, that's really, really interesting. I wanted to flow this conversation towards, I guess, thoughts on, like, how should a man think about money, or how do men think about money in general, the enlightened masculine men? What are their views on this, or what would an enlightened person view money as? Like,
Well, I don't know, man. That's heavy. Like, how would an enlightenment, I have this opinion that the biggest movers and shakers of our time, I don't know what you guys think about this. Comment on. I want to see some comments. I want to see some participation from the audience, guys. We got a bunch of people viewing on different platforms. Type something. So I see the biggest movers and shakers, Akash, of our time. Everyone from Donald Trump to every politician to every sports athlete to every musician. I like Kanye West, to anybody that's making an impact. When you look at, like, the numbers of how many people on Earth and how many people are making an impact, if it was 100,000 to 1, that would be what, like 100,000 impacted people, and each one of them has 100,000 people. I view each one of those as a reincarnated spiritual master. Why else would they be so successful? Oh, well, it's because of their parents. Minus those out, and then it's still a majority of them, because not that many of them are just, like, trust fund babies. Okay, so then why are they so good? Well, it's because of their upbringing. Well, why did they get brought up there? Well, if you're going to go into past lives, I don't know. You can't prove that. You're right. I can't prove that. But there seems to be, in all walks of life, examples of somebody who escaped that walk of life and made themselves very much greater. And if there's an example of, any position in life, any socioeconomic position, any sexual position, sexual orientation, whoever you are, there's an example of someone kind of sort of like you that made it to a high level. They came from where you're coming from and they made it to a high level. Why is that? It couldn't just be the environment, because then you would predict somebody's future just by where they were born, right? And that's why astrology doesn't work anymore, because people are moving around the planet so easily that where you were born just no longer dictates your upbringing. Like 2,000 years ago, where you would never move more than 15 miles from where you were born, ever, whole life. That's where you are. you know the mountain like the back of your hand, but you know what's over that mountain. And so, I think that if there are some people that I like to watch about money, and I don't watch that much, and maybe I should more because I want more money. But it seems there's a lot of negativity in that arena. But some people I like to watch about money. I really like Jordan Belfort. I also really like Grant Cardone, and I like Milton Erickson. Not Milton Friedman. That was a hypnotist. Milton Erickson. Milton, yes. Who's dead, but Milton Friedman was brilliant. And there's a guy. His name is Stefan Molyneux. I like how he talks about Bitcoin. And how I measure it is very similar. And there's probably other people. How I measure it is similar to like spiritual realization, where if somebody breaks down the mechanics of like why yoga works, why breathe, meditate, like whatever, and it starts to free me up a little bit, like that sentence, we're mostly blind to the universe, or we're mostly blind to what's happening around us. So that's like a spiritual like understanding that if you understand law of attraction and the principles of alchemy at all, like that should awaken in you just a fire to go back to your practice and redo everything you ever did. And so when I listen to thinkers on money, and they talk about money, I'm a big capitalist myself. I truly believe capitalism is the most non-violent and yogic economic philosophy around. And because when I heard the ideas of voluntary exchange, non-coercion, the non-initiation of force on anybody for a financial exchange, which is a principle of capitalism, I thought, why are not all yogis capitalists? And on a high level, when you read some yogis, a lot of them talk about just massive independence from need of other people, which would be socialism, dependent on the social financial structure. So, yeah, I guess I would say those things. When you listen to when I listen to the philosophies of those people, it frees me up. I get free. I start to feel free about money. I feel a little bit more free of how the understanding of what is money, what do you do with money, where does it come from? It's an amazing topic, and then the other thing I said. So listening to them will do that, but then also, from my opinion, my perspective, I think that anyone who truly believes in the principles of non-harming, ahimsa, reconsider if you're not a capitalist free market proponent. That is the most non-violent economic system. And that's what I would say about it.
Very, very interesting. One of the things I remember Arash had taught us is that it's really important to reframe how you think about money in and of itself, right? So oftentimes there's conventional wisdom, or no, I don't even know if this is wisdom, but there's conventional stupidity around that says money's bad, money is the root of all evil, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, where the heck did you get that from? It's like, I don't think money is bad. I'm a good person. I like spending it, and I spend it on things and people that I value. How is money bad? It's like saying love is bad. You know what I mean? Like, or sex is bad. Like, what? No. Depends on how you use it. These are all tools. And so if you use a tool, and like if you use a knife to like kill someone, yeah, it's not, the knife itself isn't bad. It's the way that you used it that is bad. It comes again back to the intention. As we were talking about earlier, it's like, well, what's really the purpose of this? What am I really aiming to do with this? And that's why it's important to check. What's my intention first? Because oftentimes we're unaware of our intentions. And I say this because I myself have times when I'm unaware of what is it that I aim to be doing right now? I don't know. And one of the things I've committed to is being more intentional with my intentions. Or,
May I jump in?
yeah, go ahead, brother.
You said this, and I want to have the opportunity before we wrap it up to ask you my question, which is talking about intention. Find your intention. How do you find your intention? I would love
Yeah,
some clarity on this because it's a practice of mine, and I want to know if there's any tips or tricks that can help speed it along.
finding my intention. So, first thing is just understanding where I am itself. So, in the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional context, um, where am I and how am I? What's my mindset like? Uh, what is my body shooting out to the universe in terms of vibrations? Based on that, I think of what are my goals and what are the goals that I've set out for myself for this particular lifetime. It could be by the end of the day, it could be end of week, end of month, end of year, end of decade, end of lifetime. Just thinking through what are all of those goals and going through them in kind of the larger progression. From there, I think through what is it's that I've done thus far to get towards that place, and is what I'm doing in alignment with what my goals are. So that's my process, I guess, in some ways, to set an intention of really reframing as to, does this align with my larger purpose? But I'd love to hear yours actually as well, if you have some time to share on that.
Well, I don't think of it in some of those words because my next question would involve how do you determine what your goals are? However, maybe that sounds like a silly question, but when you're talking, it's like I think to myself, everything that I daydream about, every daydream is a goal, and a lot of my daydreams I don't like they're commercials or they're negative outcomes or I don't know what they are. It's things that I'd rather not be there. But that's somehow I consider that's a goal. It's just not a goal that I would call a goal. But it's what's the difference between a goal and that? Like a goal is like you see something and you feel something about it and and it's desired. And so the only difference is I'm not desiring those things. But then why do they keep coming up? Somewhere on some level of my neurology, it desires that. That's why it keeps coming up. Even if it's an unconscious groove in my nervous system. So, you know, becoming aware of like everything that I'm thinking about and daydreaming about, and then just considering it a goal. It's a goal, and instead of calling it a goal or not a goal, I would just say it's a constructive goal or it's a negative goal, or something like. So it's still a goal, and then you got to go in with discernment. Like, do I want this? Do I not? Okay, so what outcomes do I want? And let's see. If I had an intention, a lot of times I push my mind into the future, and I think, what do I want it to be like? And then I kind of connect the time arrow and what intention would I have now that would get me to that end. And then I just search my mind for the words. So why talking is so important.
Yeah.
Talking is so important. I got to be able to put words on my experience. And so it's difficult to set an intention like this, precise, a magic spell intention, because other intentions would just be like with your emotions, just set an emotional intention. That's great. It's just emotions are so vague and they're so blurry and they quickly morph into other things. If you just spell it out in a sentence, the language of English is not going to change that much in the next few years. It'd be one thing if you set like your intention in Sanskrit or you set your intention in Latin or something or Greek. Like that's dead, right? It would be one thing if you set your intention and came back and checked on it like 200 years from now. The words would change. So the intention of the Declaration of Independence has changed because the words have changed. You have to have a scholar go in there and be like, okay, 300 years ago, these words meant this. And but if you're just setting an intention for like 10 days from now, even 10 years from now, or just 10 hours from now, 10 minutes from now, set an intention for my meditation. Like, what do you want the end to be? How would you describe that end now? And and then the accuracy of your words, super important. So yeah, setting an intent. I think. What do you think about that? That's
a great
put it out for anybody.
That's a great question, because here's the thing. In yoga class, we'll often talk about at the beginning of practice, okay, set an intention. And it's like for most of the people who, I mean, for people who I know are first timers, and this was for me myself, I was like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, are you like, set an intention? What does this mean? So something as, like, I think, as we talked about, a process of what does that really mean, and kind of what we hinted at in a lot of ways. And I think we could probably, if we sat down, spell it out even deeper.
Yeah, let's do it.
But
not now.
yeah, no, totally. But like, what does that mean? Because I don't know about you, but that's something that I hear in yoga class all the time. All right, let's set an intention for our
They don't know, man. I have not met yogis that are like this. Like, I didn't know what yoga was till I met Arash Bazar. And he didn't practice yoga. He's a martial artist, but the way he talked about yoga put a language to my experience that once I lassoed my experience with some words, I could then tighten it up. I could loosen it up. I could pull it over here, pull it over there. I could define my experience. But before that, it was just a amorphic blob of energy that, had a color to it, had a feeling to it, but it didn't have any symbolic representation to it. So, yeah, we could definitely, I already made notes. I'm going to make a silent flute video after this.
Also,
some of my key points. This is something I really like doing these podcasts for. So like in 45 minutes, we'll go through some content. I'll say 1 or 2 or 3 good things that I like. Ooh, I want to give this to my subscribers. And then I'll make a 3 or 4 or 5 minute video about it. So they don't need to watch a 45-minute podcast to get the gold. Or I'm saving them time. I'm giving people pay me to get back time because I'm getting them the same level up, but I'm taking less time to get them there. And so they make time in the end. And so how much is your time worth? And that's what I
charge. $10,000 an hour over here.
Yeah, I find the right client. That's what Sean Corrin, who's a female yoga teacher, she charges, but she knows a bunch of LA celebrities and whatever. So people that value time like that, someone on their deathbed, if you could coach them through to stay conscious as they die, they would possibly leave all their money to you.
Huh.
Prove it. Why not? Who else would they give their money? If you could keep,
that's true.
And that would be like a high level yogi,
Interesting. So, yeah. So I guess we start closing it out. On that thought itself, actually, I've been reading it's called Thinking, Breathing, Dreaming, I think, something like that. And it's practical wisdom from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And so it's funny enough, I've been learning about the bardos and how do you die in and of itself. So it's funny that you brought that up.
Yeah.
It's incredible. How do we escape this place? Or maybe not escape it, but have as much fun in it before we escape it. So Yogi Chris, I'll turn it over to you in terms of, or I guess, how about this? There is the Facebook group that we have, and we would love for you guys to join. Any questions about health, wealth, relationships, spirituality, these are the games in life. If you don't know, now you know. And any questions you guys have about that we have content on, we would love to share with you. Plenty of stuff, plenty of richness between Yogi Chris and I. The amount of collective dollars spent on esoteric knowledge and this type of knowledge in and of itself is probably close to 6 figures between the two of us. I wouldn't be surprised. And so there's a lot of richness that we have to share with you, and we want to. That's why we're here today, is really to, hey, look, guys, we've got a lot that we've learned. We can't keep this all because that would be super selfish, and we are abundant men who just give. We simply give. So check out our Facebook group. Yogi Chris, I'll turn it over to you to some of the programs that you have. Flavor of Language, I've been watching. Absolutely incredible, just in terms of the way of thinking about how do you use your language itself and the impacts that it has on others. So can you tell us a little bit more about some of the other products you have?
Yeah, it's a lot of great content. Like when I think about and talk about law of attraction and energy and how to vibe with your environment, how to vibe with other people, persuasion, and persuading yourself into certain states of mind. It's a beautiful practice that seems really, really rich. Mantras you guys recite to remind yourself that you are here. Where are you? I say that to myself 108 times. Where are you? So, yeah, even things like that. Like there's magic words or spells. You see? That's why they call it spelling. It should be obvious. There's spells. And if you spell the right sentence, then you can really fuck yourself up in a good way or in a not good way. And so I just told you a spell that had a question mark symbol at the end of it, and it moved your mind to a certain concept that put your attention on something kind of existential. Because when you ask yourself, where are you so many times, um, you transcend the geographic location where you are, and you start thinking in terms of other ways that you could, you know, mystically interpret those words. Your subconscious will naturally do this. So then when you stack a bunch of spells on top of each other that move your mind to point A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then all of a sudden you connected your starting place to point G, which is, what is G? G could be a certain state of mind. G could be a certain way of thinking about your goals. A certain
it could be a spot.
It could. What do you mean a spot?
The G spot.
It could be a spot. Yeah. You know. I could play more with this with sexual. I'm sure there's like so many applications to this. I think I could definitely trance a girl into something that was. I'm going to play with it. That's opening a window. So mostly I go with things that emphasize clarity around your self-image and around your communication, and emphasize little progressions into arenas of life that will allow you best time to practice your self-image, practice your self-talk, practice your outside talk, and practice your goal setting and clarity around these things. So flavor of language is, it's an old lecture series. It's 18 months old or 12 months old or so, but it's really good stuff. I was really onto a really cool pulse of phonetics and kind of the magic of phonetics, which is how you articulate sounds and how your consonants cut up your vowels, cut up your stream of air, they cut up your breath. So they cut up your breath and mind are the same. So now we're on level 2. In the silent flute for the last 2 weeks, I gave the language instinct. This is flavor of language part 2. I'll package it up and put it up there. I did the language instinct 2 weeks ago. Last week I did deleting mental loops. And this next week I'm going to do the evolution of phonetics and persuasion, which is tomorrow. Yeah, every Monday night is the lecture. And so there's some knowledge there, and then there's also application. So I would encourage anyone that sees this as part of your path, that if yoga, if meditation, if spirituality is part of it, or if not that, if communication, persuasion, sales is part of it, or if not that, if just wellness, personal development, and getting control of those chaotic emotions that keep pushing and pulling your focus into so many directions. And if you want to get a grip on it, then there's so many resources that are available to you. I have a book that's out now. I have my silent flute training program, which is up to $157 a month now. And get on it now because it's going up to $247. It becomes a yoga teacher training program. And then it's going up to $397, then to $497. And this is my goal for the silent flute. It's already at $497 value. If you look at some of the testimonials, people would pay that. It's just finding enough of an audience to make that worth it. I don't want one client for $497 a month. I'd rather have 25 clients at $127 a month. And then I'll push the price. And the people that are in at a lower price, they stay grandfathered in at that price. Because I want to honor that, so they stay at whatever they came in at. Flavor of Language is available at ninthlimb.com. The silent flute is available at ninthlimb.com. And, I have 700 videos on YouTube and hundreds of videos on Facebook. If you're not convinced yet, then go and watch that stuff. But at some point, I want to save you time. So you don't have to watch 300 hours of my YouTube content. Come into the silent flute and I'll get you the same transformation in 12 to 16 hours. Because the Sherpa does not give you extra data. They just tell you, go here, go there, go here, go there. Don't deviate from this. I get you to the outcome you want fast. Save you time. What's your time worth? So
let Yogi Chris be your Sherpa. That's what I got away from this.
Your Sherpa. I'll be your Sherpa. That's great. That really condenses the sales pitch. All of that shit that I said, be like, I'll be your Sherpa. Let me hold your hand. I'll Sherpa you to the top of the mountain, at least as high as I've come. And so I appreciate the laughing. So yeah, I think, and we should do, some kind of donation cut. We did a Sangha talk in the Science of Spiritual Growth. So maybe at the end of this month, let's do some, we could even put it about goals and intention setting and finding your groove. Or this was great. I love this topic.
Finding your G spot. I think it'll be goals, groove, and girls.
All right. There. Finding your magic 3 Gs.
There you go.
3G. All right.
All right, Yogi Chris. Thank you so much. Awesome time today. I had an absolute blast, and this is what we're about over here, gentlemen and ladies. We're all about the ladies as well.
Namaste, everyone. See you next time, next Saturday and Sunday, 12 p.m.
Namaste.